Tonight, our program includes a diverse panel who will set the stage for our discussion by briefly responding to some questions we have posed about discrimination.
My name is Pari Sheth. I'm a practicing attorney here in St. Louis. I'm an immigrant. I came to the U.S. in 1986 as a student. It took me 7 years to get a green card, legal permanent residency, and 5 more to become a citizen. So that's just to give you an idea of what the tenure here. I work closely with the Bar Association of Metropolitan St. Louis, the American Bar Association, of course, the American Immigration Law Association. I also chair the Immigration Law Committee of PAMSO, the Bar Association of Metropolitan St. Louis. And I also counsel to about 4 not-for-profit organizations in St. Louis and coach various small immigrant businesses here as well. In fact, about 95% of my client base is immigrants. My practice consists of providing advice concerning capital investment, taxation, contractual obligations, intellectual property issues, and primarily immigration and employment matters. We have represented individuals from China, India, Thailand, Liberia, Mexico, Canada, Venezuela, Chile, United Kingdom, Russia, and various other parts of the world. And when representing clients, we look at the corporate entity, tax planning issue, the real estate issues. We also work with a Thai investor in enforcing certain patent and trademark issues here in the U.S. And I work a lot with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in the immigration practice in a wide array of issues related to planning for and obtaining non-immigrant and permanent residency status. We represent corporate clients on workplace compliance issues. I think there's some information back there on I-9s. Specifically, I-9 audits as conducted by the Department of Labor. And then in the area of immigration litigation, I represent clients, be it individuals or corporations, before the immigration judge in terms of bond hearings, federal court hearings, asylum applications, and also Board of Immigration Appeals. When I talk about employment discrimination, I look at it at two broad areas. Number one, I think Joan mentioned some of that, legislative discrimination. You've all heard of the Arizona SB 1070. How many of you agree with it? Show of hands. Good. Agree with it. Good. I'm glad. You know, I've heard that it was so bad that UPS could no longer use their slogan, "What can Brown do for you?" Yeah, interestingly, Kansas has a very similar version of this bill, and just last week, the Kansas version of SB 70 is House Bill 2372. Makes for very interesting reading. If you ever get a moment, please read it. I believe Missouri will soon introduce a bill very similar, just a matter of time, I think. Joan talked about HB 167, that's the English-only driver's license test. HB 168, a bill that would require the state to identify licenses and state IDs as being issued to non-citizens. And then SB 72, one of my favorite bills, which is sponsored by the state senator, Will Krause, who incidentally was an immigration attorney, that would force the state attorney general to sue the federal government to enforce the law. Well, you know, we as the immigration bar have really questioned the premise of the bill. The premise being that the federal government is not enforcing immigration laws in the state. You know, the state has not spent any money and not employed any personnel in enforcing immigration laws. Whereas the current federal enforcement has resulted in the removal, I feel very strongly about this, that's why I started talking about it, but has resulted in the removal of about 400,000 individuals last year. There are at least a few thousand employees that have been audited by ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And Missouri has rolled out the controversial Secure Communities program. I'm not going to go into the details, but in 12 jurisdictions. So if on Interstate 70 you see cars being stopped and searched under the quote-unquote reasonable suspicion standard, you will know this is part of what's called the Secure Communities program. And of course, finally, the E-Verify program. It's a federal effort, it's laudable. However, the Social Security Administration estimates that there are 17.8 million discrepancies, records containing discrepancies, which means that 1 out of 25 hires could erroneously be flagged as ineligible for work. That's the E-Verify program. Administrative discrimination. This is where I put a personal flavor to what I've seen in my practice. I can talk about this Bahrainian woman, an H-1B worker, an authorized worker, assaulted during custody by ICE. The U.S. husband was, of course, livid. Fortunately, the immigration judge in Oakdale, Louisiana, released her and terminated proceedings because of this incident. I can talk to you about my LPR, legal permanent resident German client, who was strip searched in Chicago by the Border and Customs Protection. I can talk to you about the client from India who was subject to detention and humiliation in ICE custody. He was an asylee. He was without food and water for 3 days before I could bail him out because he was vegetarian. I can talk to you about the Mexican couple who has been subject to a 3-hour interrogation by the USCIS and is now waiting for 7 years for permanent residency, not unlike my case. And of course, you've heard the ICE horror stories of the Iowa detention and so on and so forth. ICE and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Lessons learned. What we learn from this is that as a country, we need a very comprehensive immigration reform. In fact, the last census, there was a question, and 67% of all voters nationwide supported this effort. I also believe we need to bring U.S. immigration policies in line with economic and social realities. And the immigration policy should be responsive to labor demands and ensure fair wages for all workers, whether they are native or foreign born. And lastly, my last point is that the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, be it citizenship, be it immigration and customs enforcement, or be it borders and customs protection, must be trained and staffed to understand, comprehend, and empathize with the diversity of the workplace, and must be trained to be sensitive to various cultural norms. They have to understand the realities that there are 4 million U.S. citizen children with at least one unauthorized parent, and policies that target their parents have grave effects on the children. 53% of unauthorized immigrants have been in the U.S. for 10 years or more, and the vast majority of unauthorized immigrants are simply here to work. Unauthorized immigrants who work, pay taxes, do not commit crimes, and want to be immigrants, or want to be Americans. We do need comprehensive reform. The Immigration Policy Center has put these facts, called Give Facts a Fighting Chance. If and when you folks have some time, can't sleep, please read this. It's very enlightening and eye-opening.